Okay, guys. So this is the next section 14.4, video 1, factoring trinomials in form ax squared plus bx plus c. In this case, what is new that a is not going to be equal. It's not going to be equal 1. So to the method which I introduced in 14.2, I'm going to add one extra step and teach you how to do it. So let's go over the example. Example 1. Factor 2x squared plus 7x plus 6 using AC method. So you already know this method. Technically, we did that in the previous section. I'm just going to add one extra step because in this example, a it's not equal 1. So in the examples, when a it's not equal 1, you need to follow the steps which I'm about to give you. So a it's equal 2, b it's equal 7, c it's equal 6. Okay, so step 1, we're doing the same thing. Multiply a times c. So we have 2 times 6 times 6, 2 times 6, and we're getting 12. Okay, AC. Okay. Step 2. Find two integers. Which products it's equal to a times c. In our example, 12 equal 12, and sum is equal to coefficient b. Again, in our example, b it's equal 7. Okay, so let's find it the way we did it in section 14.2. Let's find those two integers which by multiplication it's equal 12. Okay, that's our AC. Okay, and find the same two integers which by addition will give you b. B is equal 7. Let's not put it as exponent. Okay, 7. Okay, that's our b. Okay, so let's find it. Let's see what's going to work. 4 times 3, it's equal 12. 4 plus 3, it's equal 7. So we have it. Okay, step 3. Create two factors. And this is new. Okay, so I want you to pay attention to this one. Since the leading coefficient, since a it's not equal 1, you need to follow this. So you're going to create two factors. AX and AX. So before what we did in 14.2, you only put x in each parenthesis. Now I'm putting AX. A, it's the leading coefficient, which is 2. Okay? Right here. A, it's a leading coefficient. Plus first integer, which we find, times ax plus the second integer, which we find. So this is new so far, okay? Before we didn't have to do it because a was equal 1. So in our example, let's just rewrite that. In our example, we have 2x plus 4 times 2x plus 3. Again, going back, y it's 2, a it's equal to. Okay, so putting ax. Okay, so that's not the end, and many students are just leaving the work that way, which is not correct. So there's one extra step which we need to add it. Okay, so this is not the end. Step 4. Since a it's not equal to 1. Okay, since a it's not equal to 1, you need to factor out Gcf greatest common factor from each parenthesis. Okay, so please remember about the step 4 because that's the very important step. So let's do it. We have 2x plus 4 times 2x plus 3. So let's take care of the first parenthesis. So you have 2x plus 4. Gcf here will be 2. Okay, so I'm putting that 2 times, and again you take your original, which was 2x, you divide by your Gcf, which is 2, you end up with x, so that x goes here, and then you take your original, which is 4, you divide by your Gcf, which is 2, you end up with 2, so you're putting 2 in the parenthesis, plus 2. And also when you distribute, you should end up with original. Okay. Next, the second parenthesis, 2x plus 3. In this case, Gcf, it's equal 1. So when Gcf it's equal 1, leave it. The parenthesis the way it is. So we're just going to keep it. Okay, this is prime. Okay, so step 5. Let me put that in pink. Step 5. Rewrite parentheses without Gcf. So you ignore Gcf. Okay, and you only do that if leading coefficient is not equal to 1. Again, a is the leading coefficient. Leading coefficient, it's a real number which is in front of the variable to the highest exponent. Okay, so how that looks in our example. Okay, Gcf was equal to, so when we factor that Gcf, you're going to ignore it. Okay, so we're going to rewrite the first parenthesis without Gcf, which is x plus 2, right here. The second parenthesis had the Gcf equal 1, so technically we keep the original because there's nothing to factor out. So you just rewrite that as 2x plus 3. Okay, so this is the final answer. They are factors of 2x squared plus 7x plus 6. Okay, and you can go ahead, you can FOIL and check, and you will see that you will end up with correct solution. I'm just going to leave that for you. Okay, so what is new here? Technically, we follow the same steps like in section 14.2. The only thing, when you create your factors, okay, you have ax plus first integers times ax plus second integer. You guys need to remember that when you have your factors, your parentheses, you have to factor out Gcf, if you have one, from each parenthesis. And then what you're doing with that technique, AC method, your final solution, you ignoring that Gcf, so you're not writing that Gcf. Okay, so like you see, I ignore that 2, and that 2x plus 4, I rewrite only as x plus 2. Okay, why are we ignoring? Again, I'm not going to prove it why, but again, this is like algorithm, which will help you to factor any type of quadratic equation. I really like this method. Okay, if you guys will just follow those steps, I think it's one of the easier method to factor. So let's do more. Let's do example 2. Let's practice. Okay, so in this section we're practicing AC method. Example 2. Factor 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 using AC method. And I told you guys in previous video that I'm just stick to one method. Okay, if you have one which you learned it in high school or in other mathematics class which you took and you really like it, there's no reason for you to change it as long as it's correct. For those who struggle with factoring or you see them first time, I think that this method is one of the easier one personally. So I'm just going to stick to one. I don't want to overwhelm anybody and start introducing different ways of factoring. Let's just learn one method and stick to it. Okay, so here a is equal to, b is equal 5, that's the coefficient in front of x, and c it's always number which is by itself. So let's follow those steps. Step 1, multiply a times c. So we're having 2 times 3, we're getting 6. Step 2, again, find two integers. Okay, two integers which by multiplication give you a times c, which is 6. And the same two integers by addition gives you b. In our case, b is equal 5. Okay, so what's going to work? 2 and 3. 2 times 3, it's 6. 2 plus 3, it's equal 5. So we have them. So this is, I would say, 70% of work. Okay, those first two steps. Step 3. Create two parentheses, two factors. Okay. Again, ax plus first integer times ax plus second integer. Okay, so in our example, this is what we have. A, again, a was equal to, okay, that's your a. So we're going to have 2x plus the first integer which we find was 2 times 2x, and the second integer which we find was 3. Okay, So again, don't stop here because that's not the end. Since you have leading coefficient a, number different than 1, you have to continue. So step 4, okay, what we need to do, factor out Gcf from each parenthesis, if you have one, okay? So the first parenthesis is 2x plus 2, Gcf is equal to, so we take that 2 in front of the parenthesis and factor out. So 2x divided by 2, showing word here, it's equal x. So that x goes here. And then take your second expression, which is positive 2, divide by Gcf, which is 2. You're getting 1. That 1 goes here. Okay. And when you have that Gcf, so here, this parenthesis, you will rewrite without Gcf. So technically what you're going to do with that, ignore it. Okay. Next, the second parenthesis, we have 2x plus 3. 2x plus 3. So Gcf between 2 and 3, again, there is no number which can divide 2 and 3. So that means Gcf is equal 1. So keep it as 2x plus 3. Okay. So now what we're going to do, leave it the way it is. Step 5, rewrite parentheses without Gcf. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to rewrite that as x plus 1 times 2x plus 3. Okay, so we have it, that will be x plus 1 times 2x plus 3. And that's it. That's our final answer. That's the answer. Again, if you're not sure what you're doing, you can always FOIL, multiply, and again, let's just FOIL once. Because I'm telling you to do that, but so let's check if this is correct. Which should be, okay? So x plus 1, let's review that FOIL. Times 2x plus 3, FOIL. Okay? So what we're doing, F stands for first. Multiply first. So you multiply x times 2x. You're getting 2x squared. Okay. O stands for outside. So you multiply x times 3. That's the outside. So we're having x times 3, which is just 3x. I stands for inner or inside. So inner will be 1 and 2x. Multiply them. 1 times 2x, you're getting 2x. And L stands for last. Your last, it's 1 and 3. So multiply 1 times 3. And you're getting 3. Okay, so now I'm just going to add those expressions together. So we have 2x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 3. And when you FOIL 99%, you will need to simplify by combining the middle expressions. So that will give you 2x squared plus 5x plus 3. And if we'll go back to our original problem, that's the trinomial which we had. So we factored that correctly, and this is the original equation. So there's a way to always check your work, okay? Let's talk about example 3. Example 3. Factoring trinomial. Trinomials when a is negative. So important. Example, let's do a. Factor negative 16x squared plus 34x plus 15. Okay, so why this is different? You have a, which is not equal to 1, but on top of that, it's negative. So when a is negative, what you always want to do, you want to always factor out negative 1. And then use AC method. So be careful with that. Step 1, okay, factor out negative 1 before using AC method. Okay, so we're going to rewrite this. Okay, negative 16x squared plus 34x plus 15, it's equal, we factoring out negative 1 times, and when we factor out negative 1, that means your original expression will change the operation to opposite. So we'll have 16x squared minus 34x minus 15. So change the original sign to the opposite. Okay, so we did step 1. Step 2. Factor out the expression which you have in the parenthesis, the trinomial. (16x squared minus 34x minus 15 using AC method. Using AC method. Okay, so negative 16x squared minus 34x minus 15. Okay, so let's I'm sorry. Oh. It's positive. Okay. Okay, so step number 1, you multiply a times c. So we're getting, again, a it's equal 16, b it's equal negative 34, c it's equal negative 15. So again, I'm talking only about this. I'm not going back to original example because we factored that negative 1, which was GCF. We'll go back to that later. So a times c, we have 16 times negative 15, and that will give you negative 240. Okay, so find two integers which by multiplication gives you that AC, which is negative 240, and the same two integers which by addition gives you b is equal negative 34. So again, that's B, and that's that AC. Okay, so it becomes a little more challenge when you have a bigger numbers. So it may take a little time to find those interior. What's going to work? -40 and 6. So give yourself time. Okay, don't give up so quickly. Just try to come up with all the combinations. -40 and 6, -40 times 6, -240, -40 plus 6 will give you -34. So we have it. Next, what we're going to do. So next you're going to rewrite as ax plus first integer times ax plus second integer. Okay, so let's do it. In our case, a is equals 16. Okay, a is equals 16. So we're going to have 16x plus first integer, which was plus -40, so just putting -40, times 16x plus second integer, which second integer is 6, so we're putting plus 6. Okay, don't forget that this is not the final answer. This is not a final answer. We have to continue. Okay, next what you're going to do, factor Gcf from each parenthesis, from each group. So let's take care of the first parenthesis, which is 16x minus 40. You need to find the greatest common factor between 16 and 40. So Gcf between 16 and 40 will be 8. So we're going to factor that 8 and take your original expression, take that 16x and divide that by Gcf, which was 8. You end up with 2x. So 2x goes inside the parenthesis. And then take the second expression, which is -40, divide by Gcf, which is 8, and we end up with -5. That -5 will go here. Okay, so 16x minus 40 is 8 times 2x minus 5, and just remember what I teach you. Keep only 2x minus 5, okay? So you have to ignore Gcf. So that's the algorithm, AC method algorithm, which I teach you. Next, the second group, you guys have 16x plus 6. Equal. Excuse me. Find Gcf. Okay, so Gcf between 16 and 6 will be 2. So putting that 2 times. Again, take that 16x, divide by 2, you will end up with 8x. That will go here. And take that positive 6, divide by Gcf, which is 2. You end up with positive 3. That's why in the parentheses you have plus 3. And the same thing. Keep only 8x plus 3. Okay? Skip it. Ignore Gcf. Okay? So that's the algorithm. So this is what we're going to rewrite. We're going to rewrite that as 2x plus minus 5 times 8x plus 3. Okay, so that's what we keep it. So let's move on. So again, Next was rewrite the groups, parenthesis groups, without Gcf. Okay, so we have 2x minus 5 times 8x plus 3. Okay, and next go back to original problem, which was negative 16 x squared plus 34x plus 15, and rewrite as original Gcf. Again, that original Gcf. So we had to factor, let me go back to the original problem. We had to factor that negative 1, okay? Right here. So you cannot skip it, okay? This one, you have to keep it. I'm only skipping the Gcf when I'm factoring trinomial in form ax squared plus bx plus c. But here, you cannot ignore that negative 1. Which was equal negative 1. And 2x minus 5 times 8x plus 3, the factors which we find from AC method. So final answer will be this one, negative 1 times 2x minus 5 times 8x plus 3. So that's the final answer. So don't forget that at the beginning we factor out that negative 1. So very important that you keep it, okay? Okay, I have a couple more examples, but I'm going to do that in the next video. Okay, so let me stop here. Stop recording.